Alright, I'm really sorry I have to make another video about AOC. I guess it's just that time of year that she can't help but say some of the most asinine things I've ever heard. I can't not respond to this. So she has now said, quote, "Only in America when the president tweets about liberation does he mean go back to work," end quote. Now real quick, most of the time, the vast majority of the time, when people say the word liberation, they're not talking about going back to work. It's just that right now, well, people are forbidden to go to work, so in this context, it makes sense to use the word liberation when referring to allowing people to go to the jobs that sustain them and allow them to make a living and provide them with some form of quality of life. So yes, when people are being prevented from going to work, the word liberation might be appropriate to describe them then being allowed to go back to work. This is English Language 101. Context sometimes matters. I shouldn't have to explain this to someone in Congress. That's frightening. So then she says, quote, "When we have this discussion about going back or reopening, I think a lot of people should just say, no, we're not going back to that. We're not going back to working 70-hour weeks just so that we can put food on the table and not even feel any sort of semblance of security in our lives," end quote. Okay, I looked it up and I couldn't find the exact numbers I wanted, but I found that American workers work on average 34.4 hours a week, which is pretty far away from 70 hours, so I think she's exaggerating a bit here. Now, the numbers I saw came from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, but I couldn't find a standard deviation, which would be helpful in determining how many people and by how much are those people working over that average of 34 hours a week. But regardless, it's obvious that the vast majority of workers do not work 70 hours a week, so she's being a tad bit ridiculous here. But regardless, how out of touch could AOC possibly be? Do you think this message is going to resonate with anyone who is eager to go be productive and start getting a paycheck again? Does she not realize that people are shaking in their boots because the government has stopped the economic machinery that has given everyone at least a half-decent standard of living? I wonder if anyone is actually going to take her up on this advice here and say, no, I'm not going back to work until I get everything I want. I really doubt it, because as AOC said herself in this clip, that job allows them to put food on their table. And that is something that a lot of people are worried about at this point. And just imagine the sense of entitlement she must have to be in a position to tell people to refuse to go back to work until they get exactly what they want. I mean, on this channel, I rail against the Federal Reserve and the federal government to no end, but I would never think of being so absent-minded as to say to people, let's forego our livelihood until they end the Fed. That would make no sense whatsoever, and for her to even remotely suggest this, to suggest that people should behave as she would in her socialistic daydreams as some petulant child throwing a temper tantrum, well, it just shows that she is, as many have said, childish, naive, and ignorant. And not for nothing, I do feel terrible for the lower class in the US. The war on poverty, the Fed destroying the purchasing power of our currency, the manipulation of asset prices and interest rates that turn any savings that lower class people have into a worthless waste of time. I feel terrible for them. But AOC does not seem to realize it is the institution that she works for that has undoubtedly caused the most pain for those with lower incomes. But instead of doing or even just thinking a little bit about that, she tells them to just go to that business that they work for and refuse to work. This lady is just ignorant and backwards in every way. Every time she speaks, I just think, wow, this is exactly what I would expect to hear from a 5-year-old. And I don't say that as an insult. I say that quite literally because this is the kind of take that would not be shocking for a 5-year-old to have. But anyway, that is it for now. Please like, subscribe, all that stuff, and take it easy.